It's a story that's made national headlines. A Tampa boy battling leukemia. His parents did not want him to have chemo. Instead, they wanted to use natural treatments. The battle taking center stage in a courtroom. Now, a judge has ordered the 3-year-old to have chemo for 28 days. After that, his parents have the option of getting a second opinion.
This is our parents' rights just being stomped all over.
So what are a parent's rights when it comes to the health of their child?
And we have brought in our good friend and attorney, Whitney Boan, this morning to talk about that. Good morning, Whitney. Great to see you as always.
You too.
So let's talk about this because this is a really tough situation. How does it even get to the point where the state or the law has to step in and make a decision like this?
Well, Amy, in this situation, because this is a closed proceeding, we don't know exactly all of the allegations that may have been made by the Department of Children and Families, the hospital, or the sheriff's office. But what we do know is that we have a child who has acute leukemia, who's had some chemotherapy treatment, but the parents decided not to do any additional chemotherapy treatment against the advice of the doctors at the hospital, the oncologist, the hematologist, etc. And so the court has gotten involved at this point because they're concerned about whether or not this child is going to live. What's the likelihood of this child surviving without receiving additional chemotherapy treatment? So we're at a pretty extreme place where we're intervening as courts because we're concerned about whether or not a child is going to live or die.
Wow. So it's the doctor who would have to be the one to contact DCF, just like they would in an abuse case, I suppose. Is that right?
It could be the doctor. It could actually be a family member. It could be other staff at the hospital. It could be any number of individuals who have knowledge regarding what they believe is medical neglect as it relates to a child. And then at that point, the department does an investigation and then decides whether or not to seek court intervention on the child's behalf.
So what are a parent's rights when it comes to something like this?
Ordinarily, parents enjoy a pretty broad range in terms of being able to decide how they're going to raise and care for their child. Where the courts come in is when there's an issue regarding the child's right to live or to live free from extreme pain or to not deteriorate health-wise to such an extent that the child can't function. So in other words, we're concerned as the state with issues related to medical neglect. And so in this situation, where the courts have had to get involved is that there's a concern by the doctors, there's a concern by other individuals that this child isn't going to live because of the type of leukemia that the child has. It's so acute, in other words, that even if the child may be in remission now, if the child has a further occurrence of the cancer cells, it happens so quickly and takes hold so quickly that the likelihood of the child dying is very high.
Right, which makes it a little scarier. What about the religious exemption? Because, it's sort of juxtapositioning over to the measles, right? That's the kind of the big thing we're hearing right now as parents who are stepping back from the MMR vaccine, and many of them give this reason as being a religious reason. Does that hold weight with the court?
The measles, the vaccination issues are a little bit different in terms of where the courts are going to end up in a balancing test. In other words, with leukemia, in the situation with a child in Tampa, something that acute, something that deadly, the courts are going to weigh the severity of that illness a little more heavily than they're going to weigh the issue of a parent's right to choose to have their child vaccinated or not based on religious reasons. Again, we've talked about this before. The vaccination becomes more of an issue in terms of whether or not your child can participate in school, which the state has the right to preclude your child from participating in school if your child is not vaccinated, because it's a risk to other children. It doesn't mean, though, that you have to have your child vaccinated. It just means your child may not be able to participate in activities that other children may be able to that are state paid for. State funded.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, we appreciate you coming in and breaking it down for us. It is sure a complicated and controversial topic. Whitney Boan, always great to talk to you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.